Hey guys, welcome back to Genealogy and Chronology. Today we are back to Middle-earth and we will be discussing about the complete chronology of the One Ring. I post 2 new videos each month concerning history, chronology and lore. Consider subscribing to my channel and also follow me on Reddit to find the high resolution copy of this chart. Please check out my Middle-earth series which has 10 videos going over family trees of almost every major house from Tolkien's Legendarium. Let's move on to today's topic. After the War of Wrath with the downfall of Morgoth, Sauron adopted a fair form and repented his evil deeds. This was in fear of the wrath of the Valar. Eonwë ordered Sauron to return to Valinor in order to receive the judgment of Manwë. Sauron was not willing to suffer such humiliation and he instead fled and hid himself in Middle-earth. It was 500 years into the Second Age when Sauron started to stir again. Sauron decided that the Valar had forgotten about the Middle-earth and he once again turned to evil. Many men in East and South, already corrupted by Melkor, fell under the shadow by following him. By 882 of Second Age, Gil-galad sensed a shadow rising in the east and sent a warning to Númenor. Around 1000 of Second Age, Sauron was alarmed by the growing power of Númenorians and chose Mordor as a land to make into a stronghold. He began the building of Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower, near Mount Doom. Although Sauron long knew that men were easier to control, he sought to bring the elves into his service, as they were far more powerful. After lying hidden and increasing his power in secret, in 1200 of Second Age, Sauron put on a fair form, calling himself Anatar, the Lord of Gifts and an emissary of the Valar. He was never welcomed in Lindon as Elrond and Gil-galad did not trust him and refused to treat him, despite not understanding who he truly was. Elsewhere, Anatar was gladly received, especially in Eregion, where only Galadriel distrusted him. Under Anatar and the leadership of Celebrimbor, the Gwaith Mithrain became more skilled than anyone save Fëanor himself. In the year 1500 of Second Age, when they reached the pinnacle of their power, the elves began the forging of the Rings of Power. But Sauron returned to Uruk-Druin and forged his One Ring in secret. He made his One Ring as a master ring that would control all other rings of power and dominate their bearers. Sauron invested much of his own will and power into this One Ring. He was at his most powerful when he wore the ring. This meant that Sauron would lose the ability to have a physical form if the One Ring was ever to be destroyed. The ring was made of simple gold but was virtually impervious to destruction. It could only be unmade in the very fires where it had originally been forged. After owning the One Ring for more than 1800 years, Sauron was separated from it following the War of the Last Alliance. Even though Sauron slew the High Kings of Elves and Men, Gil-galad and Elendil, he was defeated by Elendil's son Isildur, who cut off Sauron's finger. Thus the One Ring was separated from its creator. After the fall of Sauron, Isildur returned to Gondor, proclaiming his kingship in Arnor and sovereign lordship over the Dunedain in both north and the south. He remained for a year in the south and planted the White Tree in Minas Anor in memory of his brother Anarion. He put the realm in order and instructed his nephew Menelil, son of Anarion, in the governance of the land. When Isildur finally felt free to leave, he committed the rule of Gondor to Menelil and with his 3 sons departed in year 2 of Third Age. Instead of heading west and then north, Isildur journeyed northwards along the Anduin in order to first come to Rivendell, where his wife and youngest son Valandil were. On the 30th day of their journey, the king, his sons, and his guard of 200 knights and soldiers reached the northern borders of the Gladden Fields. Isildur believed that all soldiers of the enemy had perished, so his camp was unguarded. There they were ambushed by a band of orcs, said to be 10 times their number. As the orcs closed in, Isildur sent his esquire, Ohtar, with 1 companion to fly with the shards of Narsil. The enemy charged and charged again. One by one, Isildur's sons died about him. Elendil was the last and he insisted that Isildur live with the One Ring. Isildur placed the ring on his finger and vanished from the battle. The orcs could still smell him and Isildur ran to the Anduin and swam across the river. It was during this effort that the One Ring slipped from his finger. As he struggled to escape the reeds and rushes on the shore, a small party of orcs spotted him and shot him. He fell back into the water and no trace of him was found by elves or men. The One Ring was lost for almost 2.5 millennia in the river Anduin. It was found by Hobbit Deagle in the year 2463 of Third Age while he was on a fishing trip. Deagle had the ring only for a few minutes, if not for a few seconds, as he was murdered by his friend Smeagol. After being cast away from his family and community for murdering his friend, Smeagol was later called Gollum and he started living in the Misty Mountains. Gollum would own the ring for about 478 years. Gollum accidentally lost the One Ring in his cave in the Misty Mountains. Bilbo Baggins, who was accompanying Thorin's company on their quest of Erebor, found the ring and claimed it for himself. Following the riddle game, Bilbo used the ring to escape the Misty Mountains. I won't be going into details of how Bilbo used the ring during the time he owned it, as everyone knows it very well from the books and movies. After possessing the ring for about 60 years, the One Ring was passed down to Bilbo's nephew, Frodo Baggins, on Bilbo's 111th birthday upon the advice of Gandalf. Frodo would be the last person to own the One Ring, but there were few who touched the One Ring during the time Frodo owned the ring. Firstly, Gandalf briefly held the One Ring on 13th April 3018 before throwing it in fire to confirm if indeed it was the One Ring of Sauron. Secondly, Tom Bombadil wore the ring for a few seconds on 27th September of 3018. It had no impact on Tom Bombadil. Lastly, Sam Gamgee carried the ring for 2 days in March of 3019 when Frodo was captured and held by orcs at Cirith Ungol. After saving Frodo from Cirith Ungol, Sam returned the One Ring to Frodo, who carried it to Orodruin but hesitated whether to cast it in its fire. Gollum then attacked Frodo to steal the ring from him, but Frodo wore the ring and became invisible. Gollum then bit and cut off Frodo's finger. His joy was short-lived as he slipped and fell into Orodruin. This brought not only his death but also the end of the One Ring. I hope you all like this video of the complete chronology of the One Ring. Be sure to join me next month as I will be discussing another interesting topic from the Middle-earth. All my charts are freely available on Reddit and Twitter. If you like my work, consider supporting me on Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee by scanning this code. Thank you.